Well, it did it again. I was nowhere near that button. Well, folks, if you're listening to the recording, it's because Crowdcast decided to go live. Phil,
Yes.
you coming on?
I think that did it. I think that kicked it off.
It kicked it live.
Yep.
So we are currently live.
So we're going to
And if
do
I
a little bit of housekeeping for a minute or two, because I think we got to put the green button up there too,
Yeah.
right? Didn't we?
How did that happen? I mean, I wasn't my hands weren't even on.
I'll tell you this. It came up and it gave me options. There was 3 options there. Go live, do something only, and there was a third one. And I did not press the go live button, but it went live.
It went live because I was sitting here going.
Now we know something. There's a new button on there when you come in, at least for me.
I didn't see it. So, folks, if you're listening to the recording, we're just talking about a technical glitch with Crowdcast. It threw us live 6 minutes early.
Yep.
So we will just have to chat along and do this, that, and the other for a minute. And
right. So if you're watching us on the recording, folks, we're 6 minutes early, so you can probably scroll ahead.
Fast forward 6 minutes,
because we don't want to just jump in now, because then
then we would leave people behind.
Right.
But it wasn't us that went live. I was sitting here just like this with
minding your own business
with my hands way back here, and suddenly it goes, "You're going live." What? But I knew it was because it had something to do with Phil coming on that triggered it to go live. Yep. I don't like that, but
I don't like that either. Crowdcast has thrown us a curveball today, folks.
I will remind myself to send Louise a message and tell her that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not press the go live button, but it did go live.
Absolutely. I could tell it was you coming on and it was going live. I'm like, oh no. And we've had to experience when we said, okay, we'll turn it off. Well, then we got to do a whole new.
And we lose everybody.
Oh, we lose everybody.
All you good people that signed up. You come here and we're not here.
Right. They're all gone. So that's not a good solution. So we might start coming on just like 2 minutes beforehand.
Yeah, maybe we do that.
I think that's a good workaround. So just in case it happens, because we don't need to come on 10 minutes early.
That could be.
And if we came on like 2 minutes early, then, well, we'd be starting by now. So
yeah. Well, this is Kevin and Phil killing a couple of minutes until 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So if you do happen to come on, I think it looks like there might even be some people. There's a couple of people that are on. I don't know if they're on with their
they're on
browsers open, and you can certainly then chat in, folks. We started out Kevin, greetings from Maine, and then myself. I'm in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, and tell us where you're from. Always like to see where people are from.
Yeah.
We especially like it when we go international, and there's a good possibility that we could go international today, I think, Kevin.
You think?
I do believe so, because we got quite a few people have shown up here today, or at least have registered to come on.
Oh, wow.
Several of which I know live in parts outside of the US of A. So go figure.
Not yet. Well, maybe
they're probably doing the same thing, waiting for 1 o'clock.
Oh, I'm sure. Why wouldn't you? Yeah. New policy. We're starting at
12:58. just in case.
Well, this glitch is not the first time it's happened. The first time it happened, I turned it off. Boy,
Oh, there it goes. Hey, Kristen.
that got me all messed up.
Yeah, and that was a lot of, well, you scrambled around and made that happen too that day too, as I recall.
Yeah, but I don't want to do that anymore.
Yep. But I see Kristen has joined us. We have one person who is now live with us at 12:59.
We'll go live at 1 o'clock. Start talking. Start doing stuff. Talk a little bit about introductory acceptance and commitment therapy and training. We don't, you know what? What happened to our green button?
It's not there.
Something's weird on this. But I put that in there.
Did you? Okay, I didn't see it when I hopped on earlier this morning.
Yeah, well, that's because between when I did it
You just
2
did
days
it.
ago and now, something.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Just keep talking, Phil.
All right. Well, it is 1 o'clock, so we would like to officially now, since it's 1 o'clock, welcome you to Matrix Talk. I'm Phil. There's Kevin over there. He's taking care of some behind-the-scenes business, and we are here today for Introductory Acceptance and Commitment Therapy and Training here on this Wednesday, May the 24th, 2023. So those of you who may be tuning in afterwards to watch the recording or out into the future, this is the day that we recorded this. And those of you that are coming on board, we ask you to chat in like Kristen has done. Kevin started. Greetings from Maine. I'm in Langhorne. Kristen's down there in Virginia. So we've got the eastern seaboard of the United States pretty much covered right now. That's pretty cool.
Well, right now, there's only people are bad about showing up late.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a strange thing, strange world we live in.
Yeah.
And then, folks, what Kevin's been working on, you can click in below on the green button and you can check out our courses in the ACT Matrix Academy, because Kevin and I have been very busy over the last few weeks, haven't we, Kevin?
Yes. Very, to say the least.
Which, if people have been wondering, oh, there hasn't been any crowdcast lately. Well, that would be correct, because we have been creating courses, which you'll hear more about as we go through today. And there's James from Rhode Island. Hi, James. Welcome aboard. And looks like a few people on right now, maybe more, as you said. Must be a slow Wednesday. Don't know what's going on.
This is acceptance. Oh, there's the 6 hour. I'll see if you can share the slides. We'll see.
Oh, yeah, that would be cool to do.
I don't know.
I got him here.
Well, I got them too. I got them up, but I don't see a.
You want to share them, or you want me to for the 6 hour?
Yeah, how do you do that?
I
Where it is, slides and docs. Or you
There it
don't.
is. I got mine up. And
I don't think you can.
let's see. Oh, down the bottom. Next to say something.
Next to
Share something. See where it says?
I mean, you can share your screen down there?
Yeah, you can.
Share.
I'm going to share it.
Okay, I'm sharing a screen. Okay, I'm
share it?
sharing screen. Okay.
You're going to do it? Okay, I'm ready if you're not.
Let me see.
All right, I'll cancel mine.
Okay, did you cancel out of yours?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Home tab, that one. Oh, that. Can you see it?
Nothing yet. There it comes. Oh, yeah, cool. And then we end up sliding over to the lower left on my browser.
Oh, cool. So you want to do it this way?
I think that's a great way to go.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do it this way. I just thought of that since we had it up in slides.
Yeah.
Okay. So, folks, what we've been working on and what you're looking at is the beginnings of the slides that we did for a 6-hour course, 6 CEs. We are now approved by the American Psychological Association to offer continuing education. And we are responsible for the content of the programs.
Yes.
You have to give that kind of disclaimer. And so we're not going to go through the whole 6-hour thing in this, but we are going to give you the overview of really more of acceptance and commitment therapy. Usually when we come on matrix talk, we go straight into the matrix. And so this time we're going to do a little bit more of a overview, go back to the original book, 1998 Acceptance and Commitment Therapy book. Now we say acceptance and commitment therapy and training because training was the first implementation of this. It wasn't therapy. They did it as a workplace intervention for stress management. And so that was back in the earlier 90s. And so then when the book came out, they just titled it Acceptance and Commitment Therapy Act. So just in case you didn't know that. So I don't want to do that line and that line. I want to do, I'm reading my slides.
Uh-huh.
I want to do that a bit, recognition, pattern. No.
Want to do the processing thing?
Yeah, I'm looking. Here we go. Here we go. This one.
Yeah.
Okay, so folks, if you look at the big overview of acceptance and commitment therapy and training, you will come to learn that it's a process. So the outcome of the therapy is a process. So you're not fixing something and then standing back and looking and say, well, there you go, that's fixed. No, you're starting a process. The metaphor that we like to use, or the simile, is of the bicycle. So in ACT, the whole idea is to get somebody up on the bike and riding the ACT bike. And there's 3 overarching processes that are talked about in ACT. And now, if you read the 98 book, you'd never see these, but
they're buried in there somewhere, I think.
But we're bringing them to the forefront. So it's 3 things. And so the 3 are showing up to the present moment is a complete sentence. So usually in the ACT annals, that's done with some kind of a mindfulness exercise. Wouldn't you agree, Phil?
I have been to several of these mindful exercise opening ACT introductions. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And so you get a lot of mindfulness stuff, and people will even say, "Oh, that acceptance and commitment therapy, that's all about mindfulness."
It's the mindfulness stuff.
All right, so say stuff like that. Now, if you're watchers of Matrix talk, you know that we don't do that, and we'll get into a little bit more of why we don't do that. We do showing up.
Oh yeah,
but we pretty well just use the word noticing, and that carries the day just fine. And we might also refer to notice your sensory experiencing and mental experiencing on the vertical line of the matrix. We'll get to that later. But there it is. I did say it.
Yeah.
The reason we don't, folks, is because the populations that Phil and I work with, a solid 50%, 60%.
Oh, probably more.
Right, 70%. don't like mindfulness exercises.
They wouldn't tolerate it for a second.
They don't like them. If they're nice, they'll fake it. But many of our clients, of which we had some ne'er-do-well clients, they wouldn't even fake it.
They would tune out.
Tune out, and it's no good for people to tune out. And some people just, put their head down. Therapists and trainers put their head down and say, "No, we got to do
this anyhow.
We have to do it." And,
bear with me.
But why would, when you're losing half your audience, like for us, we gave up on it.
Yeah.
What we just did. But nevertheless, what the mindfulness is working on is showing up to the present moment. And if you have somebody notice the difference between their sensory experiencing and mental experiencing, you are by definition in the present moment. And if you're noticing stuff, you're in the present moment. So it's all about showing up to the present moment. The reason being, folks, is that is where learning occurs.
Yeah.
So let's go back. That's slide 18, right? Let's go back to this one. You'll see this. This is literally the subtitle of the first ACT book, an experiential approach to behavior change. And you go, oh, what is that? An experiential approach. That means that you're learning through experience. You're learning new behaviors through experience. So it's much like riding a bike or bowling or golf or anything that you learn it by doing it. You don't learn it by talking about it.
Or having someone explain it to you.
Right. And the number one thing that goes on in ACT is a whole lot of explaining. And it's probably one of the reasons why people like mindfulness, because it is the experience of doing mindfulness. So you have gotten people into experience, but it's just fraught with a whole bunch of problems. And so, so experiential approach. So we were back on number 18. That's a good old vertical line. So we were doing showing up. So that's right in the middle of the matrix. If you're thinking of the matrix, letting go. You will hear something like cognitive diffusion. And now writ large, what it means is you're letting go of your struggles with internal events. That's what it means. So it doesn't mean you're getting rid of your internal events. It means you're letting go of your struggle with them. Okay, it's represent on the left side of the matrix. And it's just, we talk about getting relief from yucky stuff, okay? And so we all do that. We all get relief from yucky stuff, but sometimes that cycle can get problematic, let's say. And it becomes necessary for us to let go of the struggle. Well, on the other side of let go of the struggle is acceptance. So when you're saying letting go, you're also saying acceptance. So if you say, well, what do you mean show up, let go, get moving? That doesn't have the word acceptance in it. Yeah. Just know that letting go is part of the acceptance process, because if you accept your internal events like anxiety, depression, that kind of stuff, then you're much less likely to struggle with them. There they are. No big deal, right? And that's acceptance. So that's what's going on. And of course, get moving. And of course, you'll ask people, what is ACT? And it's about getting moving toward your values. That's what ACT is. And sometimes they'll say both mindfulness, the mindful process about getting moving toward your values.
Yeah. Doing committed actions.
Right. They very, very seldom talk about the let go process, out on the streets if people are describing this. But all three are they're part of ACT, and they're part of the ACT matrix. Way back in the day, Phil and I talked about values, and when I first did the matrix, in the lower right-hand quadrant, we put values there. This was back in 2009. So, whoa, a few years ago, right? 14
Yes.
years ago. So we were doing it and we were doing it and we were talking and we were going, you know what? we keep hitting problems with the word values. And we weren't. And you at first you don't realize it, but there's a significant number, 20, 30% or so, of people who they just don't respond well to the word values.
Turn the light off.
Yeah, they think you're dissing on them, or they go, "Are you talking about religious values?"
Yeah,
not religious.
Now we're going back to explaining.
Right, and now it's all, are you talking about politics? Because I don't like politics.
Yeah.
There we go. Now we're explaining. And that kind of stuff is not conducive to getting into the ACT process. As a matter of fact, it puts you in the weeds. So we actually switched to what's important in the lower right. That worked better. And then 2011 or 12, we started using who's important, and bingo, that works perfectly. I mean, literally almost perfectly. It's almost, I've never had somebody not be able to answer the question, who's important. You say, well, who's important? That's not exactly values. In the end of the day, folks, everybody gets moving toward who's important to them.
Just happens.
That's just it. So who's important is right down the middle of the road for get moving. Okay. So now we've finished it up. We have showing up to the present moment, letting go of your struggles with internal stuff, and get moving toward who's important to you and stuff. So there you go. And so if you don't know anything about ACT, now you can say, oh, I can tell you about ACT. It's about these three overarching processes. And one of them is about showing up to the present moment more often. Another of them is about letting go of your struggles with stuff going on inside of you. And another of them is about getting moving toward who's important to you. And if you said that, you are really given a great description of acceptance and commitment therapy.
Yes.
You are really on it. And if they say, well, how is that different than CBT? Well, let me tell you, folks, CBT doesn't talk like that. I used to be a CBT trainer. I know. That's just not how it talks about, changing your thoughts, to change your feelings, to change your
restructuring,
all of this. You're working, tinkering with your thoughts, and this is just not that. This is it. So now let's hang on, get moving for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that sort of puts us in contact with the underlying philosophy that ACT uses. What do you mean philosophy? Well, actually, we all have a philosophy. And most of us in the modern world nowadays run on mechanism, the philosophy of mechanism. So we see the world in mechanistic terms. We drive automobiles. We think in cause and effect. This happened, that caused this to happen. And we're really hung up on cause and effect. And inside the human body, it's not.
They weren't that.
Stuff shows up. It's the words that we use. There are things that happen within the human body, within thoughts, and even aches and pains and this and that. that just show up in all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't figure out what caused it to show up. I mean, it just showed up. And so a philosophy that's relying on that cause and effect, like CBT, look at things. Well, even Freud stuff was hydraulic.
Yeah.
Tension built up and you had catharsis to release it and stuff. So now this is just a show up language. And so we're not going to be fixing stuff. We're not going to be tinkering with stuff because we have no clue about what to tinker with.
Or even to begin.
We don't even know enough. So instead, ACT said, okay, let's focus on the notion that why don't you state where you're going in the first place, and then do behaviors and adjust your behaviors to get you where you want to go. So I'll use a simile. It's like you're walking toward a tree in the distance. Okay, so you set your eyes on that tree in the distance, and you start to walk, and maybe you're like me and you get distracted by, bees and hummingbirds and this and that, You look up and you go, oh, I'm not on the path to the tree. I'm a little off course. So what do? You correct course, right? But it's because you had a tree in the distance, you had a course to correct to. No trees, then you're in the desert, it's all sand around you, and you end up walking in circles, right?
Much.
We've all seen the movie. So what's it have to do with ACT? Well, that's the values of ACT. That's why they came up with values, which the values became the tree in the distance. And so now I can state out loud, I want to move toward X.
I'm heading that way.
And now I can adjust my behaviors, writ large, all behaviors, and see how they work for getting me where to go. But that philosophy is called functional contextualism. So ACT is running on top of functional contextualism. So this get moving part is absolutely essential because it sets that direction. Now, Phil and I just made it concrete, and we said, who's important to you? And you can then do behaviors that approach who's important to you. And we all know sometimes that's not a perfect process, right?
There's a little bit of hunting and pecking going on there.
Get off track,
Yep.
Things happen, but then you can correct, and you can correct your behaviors. Okay, so that's the big part of this get moving part of ACT is satisfying that underlying philosophy. Now, while you're trying to get moving toward who's important to your values, whatever you want to talk about, just what I said. Well, let's go to the showing up. Remember, I said maybe I got distracted. Not only did I get distracted, I started daydreaming about the past.
Oh, man.
And so now I'm really not paying attention to where I'm.
Nope.
I'm in danger of falling in a hole because I'm daydreaming while I'm walking. If I'm walking out in the cow field, I might step in something, right?
Yeah.
You learn why all those cattle people always look down as they walk through.
Yes. Very quickly you learn that.
Yeah, you learn that in a hurry. So in order for you to do those course corrections, you need to be in the present moment, right? You can't be daydreaming about the past and daydreaming about the future. You need to be in the present moment. And so every once in a while, you need to notice where the tree is. Let's put it that way. And you're back to the present moment. Oh, I'm walking. I'm here. there's the tree.
I've arrived.
I need to be paying attention to the present moment. And it's, boy, that's a slippery one, folks, because of human language, internal language called cognition. We can think about the past and we can think about the future. And oops, not paying attention to
Just
now.
pulling us inside.
And even just the absolute best to showing up to the present moment, folks, they don't stay there. They daydream. They drift in and out. It just happens. So it's really important to learn what works to move toward the tree, to learn what works to move toward who's important to you. You need to spend as much time as you can in the present moment. Okay. And as I said, as you're heading toward the tree, stuff can show up. Both external stuff, barriers,
Stuff shows up continuously, as a matter of fact.
Obstacles show up, and now you got to figure out how to get around the obstacle to get to the tree or whatever, and lo and behold, internal stuff can show up. From I'm so exhausted, I will never be able to make it to. I'm being dramatic, but that kind of stuff can show up, or a pain in my ankle shows up.
Or I'm too anxious to go to that meeting.
Oh no!
Can't go.
And the meeting's under the tree.
You're right.
I went back to that, but it's all of that stuff. See, and this is the kind of stuff that shows up, and it just shows up. Now, sort of from a CBT perspective, and all over, you see it on the news and stuff all the time. People say, "Oh, there must be a reason why that anxiety showed up."
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that when we were kids, there was the Freud neurotic stuff, and it had to do with, like, your mother was. If you're afraid of dogs, it's because when your mother was pregnant with you, she got scared by a dog.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The answer is in your deep dark past somewhere.
Right, and that's the thing, that we go for this cause and effect.
I must go and find out why this is occurring.
Right, and with ACT, it goes, oh, the heck with it. No, we let go of that. We didn't do, and so we let go of that. So that's what we're talking about. This, as you're moving toward who's important to you, or the meeting, or whatever you're doing, stuff's going to show up. And if you get too tangled up with struggling with it, you won't make the tree, you won't make the meeting, you won't make the date.
Nope.
You won't make the stuff. So that's metaphorically, in simile form, this ACT process. So we're, and it's really a head twister for folks that it's not focused on cause and effect, because people really they'll come into therapy to discover the deep, dark secrets in their past that are causing their current problems.
Oh yeah. They'll even say, isn't that why I'm here, to discover the causes of my problem?
Right. And folks, if you had lived back a couple hundred years ago in a much more agricultural society, you might well not have thought of that way at all.
No.
You wouldn't be.
Nope.
It's quite different, but we all drive cars and stuff, and so we're all very cause and effect oriented.
Yeah.
That's our philosophy. So there you go. So that's what's going on with this business. So what happens, this is an introductory thing, and that's why we're sticking with this: show up, let go, get moving. That's introductory, right? That's just the basics.
Yes.
How do you get started? If you go to an ACT conference, they tell you to get started with mindfulness.
We're going to do an exercise.
And we're going to do a mindfulness exercise. That's how they talk about. Phil and I quickly discovered that was not a good way for us to start.
Nope.
That led to a lot of problems. Many people say, well, you need to start with a values exercise. That's what you need to do. You need to get values clarification. Hell, I used to do it too.
Oh, well, card carrying, values sorting dude back in the day.
And there's just a lot of problems with that. What Bill and I already alluded to.
Yeah, well, besides the fact that people won't do it.
Well, that they won't do it, but you quickly go from values and I mean, it's so obvious to me now. I can't believe I used to do it.
Yeah.
When you do those things with folks, you're basically telling them they don't have values.
Yeah, you're judging. You're judging them.
That's the word I was dancing around. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it does for me. I'm judging. Yeah, there we go.
It's judgy. It's as judgy as it can be. And in the original ACT book and onward, all of ACT is non-judgmental. Just non-judgmental. That's the way it goes, non-judgmental. So if you're doing these values exercises, and if you're not being judgy, you're darn close to being judgy. No. So a lot of people, so Phil and I discovered that's not, at least in terms of values, that wasn't such a great place to start.
No, wasn't a good way to engage. Not a good way to engage people.
So for introductory, we're not going to recommend that you start with values.
No.
And then you get to the next thing that comes right after values, which is committed actions.
Mm.
And so we go to that very mechanistic thing. So if you have a value, you need to plan a committed action that will propel you toward the value. Right. Here's the next step. Well, now that you've planned the committed action, you're going to go do it.
Uh-oh.
Bill, we've been down this before.
Yeah.
And guess what? People don't.
Uh-oh. Well, that's my problem. I can't do it.
And now they just failed their homework.
Yes.
And oh man, you got yourself into the judging category again. Now you're grading. So we're saying it sounds great, folks, but there's some problems in that, and I'm sure that's why you'll hear people they don't like ACT because it ends up running on the rocks of this stuff. So we figured out how to not do that. Pretty easy. So that's why we actually do start with let go, letting. Sorry, we don't start with letting go.
We start
with get moving. We ask who's important to you, which is actually a get moving. It's over on the right side of the matrix. A get moving question, and we start there. And we fully know that we're just starting a process. And so now we will go around the matrix. Let's do that.
There we go.
There you go. You see it? The 3 colloquial core processes of ACT. Let go, show up, and get moving. And what we do, it's not on the slide, but just imagine, folks, in the lower right-hand quadrant, there is who's important to you. Check. My wife is important to me. My daughter, my son, my dog, whatever.
Colleagues, students, fill in the blank.
So we've started with the get moving process. Yay. And then what we do is then go over to the let go process, which is the lower left. And we say, hey, you know what? We humans have stuff that shows up inside of us. And that's literally how we say it. Like fear. Sometimes fear shows up inside of me. Maybe sometimes fear shows up inside of you. I don't know. You know, what other kind of stuff beyond fear shows up inside of people? And folks will go, well, let's see.
Yeah.
And anxiety, depression, frustration, all kinds of stuff like that then gets on board. So notice how the way we've evolved into doing this is to get moving, which is who's important to you. Then we very lightly touch on fear, anxiety, depression, just in this matter-of-fact language. And that matter-of-fact language is the let go. That's the beginnings anyway of the letting go process. We then go to the upper left and we talk about, well, what I'll say, when I get afraid, you might see me running. I'll run away. That's a behavior because the stuff above the horizontal line are behaviors. So I run. Can you think of other stuff people do to get relief? There's the word relief from like fear. And they go, oh, well, they might drink. Here we go. They might use heroin. You go, oh my God, the person just said heroin.
Yes, they did.
And we write it up there.
There it goes.
We don't even flinch. Write it up.
Don't even look an eye. Okay. Put it up there.
Okay. Why? Because remember, folks, we don't judge.
Non-judgmental.
And if we said, oh my gosh, you can't be using heroin. Yeah. That's judgy. So we don't do that. We just write it up there. And you just, oh man, let me tell you, Netflix, YouTube, drinking, sex, whatever. There's what relief moves. Eating. Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot. Well, and then the stuff that yoga and mindfulness. And
exercise, eating, sleeping.
Relief moves. So we talk about that. So that's still we're on let go. We're matter-of-factly talking about the struggles of life, helping folks do. It's called diffusion. Diffuse from that stuff in this lighthearted way, and then we finish up back over on get moving with, well, what kind of stuff might you do to move toward who's important to you? For example, I go talk to my wife. I enjoy talking to her. Why do we give that simple example? Because we want simple. Talk, text, feed, pet,
spend time with,
hug,
walk.
And you'll notice, folks, that now, and that's why we use the matrix. This is why it's used, because here's why. I was doing the hexaflex. That's it, another thing. Where's the hexaflex?
Oh, yeah, it's down there a little ways.
Yeah, we had the hexaflex. And in the original hexaflex slides, they had let go, show up, and get moving across the top. So I was trying to duplicate that let go, show up, get moving process with the ACT matrix. It's in part of what I was doing. And there you go. And so now you know where to start. We prefer to start with get moving, and then you do the let go, and guess what, folks? While you're doing all that, they're in the present moment.
Yeah.
They're
with you.
It just happens.
Yep.
You don't say you need to be in the present moment. No, it just happens. It's like balancing on a bike. You don't need to talk about balancing.
Yeah.
It just happens. And so now you can see that even if you're an ACT matrix user, you're doing that process. You're doing the ACT process of let go, show up, get moving. You can also do show up, let go, get moving. You can do get moving, show up, let go. It's a process, right?
Yeah.
It
all folds up back on each other after a while.
It always spins. But Phil and I, over thousands of repetitions of practice, thousands, discovered that this one works best. It's like, you learn how it works to get something started or something, but that's what you're going to keep doing, right? Because it works. Well, this process starts well with get moving. And by the way, we're going to tell you right now, it's not a particularly good idea to start with let go. Because that gets people stuck. So
Yeah.
Let's
They're
take
stuck to letting go.
so now that you know that the three colloquial processes of ACT are let go, show up, get moving, and you're thinking, well, you may not be realizing it, but the target is not any of the three of those.
Right.
And now, say most people think, oh, it's values and moving toward your values and
Actions.
achieving those. That's what ACT is looking for. Well, that's one of the processes, but that's not what it's looking for, nor with the other two. What it's looking for is psychological flexibility. And all of ACT from 1998 till now is targeted at increasing psychological flexibility. That's what it's up to. So you're using these three processes to enhance, increase psychological flexibility. Why do I say that? If you walk in and say, hey, Phil, what's wrong with you?
Oh,
What just happened to Phil's psychological flexibility?
we think of it as a flexometer, like you got a lot maximum of psychological flexibility, and then as soon as that happens, whoop.
Which is hilarious because that's what like all of Western medicine is based on, right?
Yeah.
And since you're medical doctors, you show up and they say, what's the problem?
What's going on?
So that got transferred into talk therapy. And talk therapy, what's the situation? What's wrong? Well, when people go into telling that story, in ACT parlance, it's a stuck story. They're telling you about their stuckness. And that's also known as practice.
Yes.
They're practicing.
They are well practiced by the time they get to you.
Right. And they're now, and you're giving them a new place to practice their stuff.
Here, practice some more with me.
Yeah. And so you don't want to do that. And that is why, even amongst all other ACT practitioners, they tend to start with a meditation, mindfulness exercise, or a get moving exercise, because they know better than to start with a stuck exercise, which is the let go side. So essentially letting go of stuckness. So that's why you don't start there. You don't want to give people a new context to talk about their stuckness in. We want to dash that process. We literally don't, in all of ACT, you don't want people sitting around telling their stuck story the same way. Now, in traditional ACT, the way they do that is somebody starts to launch into a stuck story, and Phil says, I'm blaming Phil on everything. He says, oh, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story.
And then the practitioner tells a metaphorical story. So if you say, oh yeah, that ACT, it has metaphors. Why are they telling metaphors? The metaphors disrupt the stuck story.
Yeah.
And so instead of the way they do it in CBT is, let's restructure your thoughts or whatever. ACT instead goes for this metaphorical, which, by the way, think of how I just said that. So they're telling a stuck story and you interrupt the stuck story in the nicest of ways.
Oh, yes. Very pleasantly.
You're interrupting that stuck story in a very nice way and telling them this fun metaphorical story that relates to their stuck story. And you just added psychological flexibility to their stuck story. Bingo.
Yep.
That's what you're up to. So metaphors in ACT are for adding psychological flexibility.
Yeah. Not changing the story, adding to the story.
And change it.
That's their story. They're going to walk out with the same story they walked in with.
Right. But You're going to add to it.
We're going to give them a
add
different space.
flexibility.
Right. Going to add stuff to it.
You're going to add flexibility to it. So that comes to a very important thing to realize. ACT is it's built on a theory of language and cognition called relational frame theory. That's sort of advanced stuff. But since you're mucking around with stuck language, relational frame theory in lots of detail shows us that you can't undo what's already been done in terms of language. Once it goes in, done.
It's in there.
no change in it. So your only option is to add flexibility. So the whole idea is to add flexibility. You add it by giving metaphorical stories. Bill and I don't do a lot of those, but that's what they're for. We do some though.
Yeah.
We're not against them.
No.
Showing up, mindfulness, that's still adding flexibility.
Absolutely.
And getting moving, well, that's sort of by definition, in part, for somebody who's stuck, getting moving is adding flexibility.
Yes.
So it's, I just repeat, so it makes this work really easy, or a lot easier, to put it that way. If you remember that your job is increasing psychological flexibility. So now you got yourself off the hook. You don't have to fix their anxiety or depression.
Oh, you don't have to track the history of their symptoms or any of that stuff.
You're off the hook for that. You're actually off the hook for them achieving value.
Yeah.
Not your job. And if you took it on as a job, it's a fool's game because people go do what they want to do.
They're going to leave your office and do whatever they want to do.
They do what they want to do. So you're not doing that. And you're certainly not responsible for people showing up to the present moment, even in your office, but certainly not after they leave your office.
Yeah.
You're off the hook. But can you give them tools that help them get a little more flexible in their life? Bingo. Yes. So all of ACT is about that process of getting people moving and that rolling along in that process to keep a bit more psychological flexibility going. So that's what makes it easy.
Yes.
So now to make it even easier, you're staring at the matrix. I did the matrix to make it easier. In case you're new, I created the matrix in 2009, spring of 2009, in an effort to make it easier. The hexaflex, that diagram I showed you, to make it easier and make this let go, show up, get moving process easier to track, right? Well, it can't get much easier. And since 2009, this thing is essentially the same. The only thing that has changed is values to what's important to who's important. we did change. It started with toward and away. And you may still see that. So toward was in place of content, and relief was back then it was away. Well, some people said, oh, that must mean that toward values and away from values. That's what. And no, it's actually approach, which is positive reinforcement on the right and negative reinforcement on the left. I know it, folks. I built it on behavioral terms of positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. In case you've forgotten, positive reinforcement is when you get something for doing a behavior, and negative reinforcement is when you get rid of a yucky feeling as a consequence of doing a behavior. So we humans really love relief moves, away moves, but they don't have anything to do with moving away from values.
Picture it all.
That's just was never there. And even recently, I saw something and it was using the matrix and it literally said away from values. Of course, I cringe. And no, folks, I let that go and I don't do anything about it except in trainings that I conduct. And I always set the record straight. And if you hear it anywhere else, say, well, I heard it from Kevin Polk himself and he created the matrix. So, the people who do that did not ask me.
No, no.
So, not a good thing to do, actually, really. But,
Yeah, it messes people up.
all right, messes people up. So anyway, that's what so it's all, so, and the let go is letting go. Remember the processes of ACT are let go, show up, and get moving. You're going to let go of your struggles of moving away from values. It doesn't even make any sense. It's
No.
not. So,
Yeah, it's
so
a
anyway, enough of that. So now
Yeah.
you have it. That's pretty good introductory ACT right there.
Yes.
Now, if you say, gee, I would like to learn more of this.
Mm.
Hey, for I can't remember what the price is, but you go to that, look on that green button down
Yeah.
below.
It's $119
19, is that it?
for a 6 CEU course.
Yeah.
CE course. Sorry, CE.
And so you get all of those slides downloadable, all that good stuff. And now,
right.
and if you'll get it anyway, but if you need CE credits, check with well, we can tell you if you're a psychologist of any ilk, they count. It's APA.
And most practitioners that we are aware of,
Right. Most social workers,
credits,
LCPs,
licensed counselors,
all of those usually counts. Check.
Yeah. You have to check with your particular state to make sure, but as far as I know, you'll be good.
We get into more, but it's still introductory. We try and keep it pretty down to earth. However, we got to talk for 6 hours. So
yes,
we end up getting into a bit more about functional contextualism, a bit more about relational frame theory, that kind of thing.
Bit more about workability.
I mean, we'll probably do some intermediate and advanced stuff. Yeah. Functional contextualism was renamed the workability model. I know I helped. I was discussing it with Steve Hayes. So I know. And it's just easier that way. Talk about it. Meaning I'm noticing what works and what doesn't work for getting me as I get moving. In ACT lingo, you would say getting moving toward values. We would say notice what works for approaching who's important to you. And we all know some stuff works and some stuff doesn't. What was I recommending the other day to get dates? Go up and ask people what's their sign.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Try and experiment.
You might discover it works every time and you get plenty of dates. That'd be great. I think other
people's signs are probably, at least.
I think other people have discovered that wasn't such a great pickup.
Yeah, no. that ship sailed a long time ago.
Folks, what I'm talking about is you do a behavior that you notice if it works.
Yeah.
That's ACT. That's getting into the mode instead of talking yourself out of behavior at all.
Yeah, which is very easy to do.
Or the other thing is doing the same behavior over and over again.
Yeah. I just know it's going to work this time.
Sometimes it's going to work. Instead, in ACT, you're loose. That's for inflexibility. So in ACT, you're looser. So, well, I'll let go of that behavior and try another one. Doesn't mean the next one's going to work, but you're going to notice if it works. That's when he says workability. We get a little further into that. But, overall, folks, this ACT is a lot of fun, especially if you do it the Matrix way.
Yeah.
It's actually fun. If you have the Matrix and you know your target is psychological flexibility, it won't go anywhere.
Yeah. Easy enough to do.
It doesn't matter which population you're working with, because you're always
I mean, you can take it into a business, into a school, into a community health setting, anywhere. Family.
and literally everyone can use let go, show up, get moving.
Oh yeah. That's pretty much what people say when we've shown them the diagram and they see it, they go, "Oh yeah, oh we could use some of that." Oh yeah, we could use some of that.
Yeah, and just so you know, we don't say let go, show up, get moving.
No, never.
That's just a way of describing ACT. We just do the Matrix.
Yeah.
Run people through the loop, and they go, "Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that." And
Yeah, I'd like to get some of that.
And then, by the way, they may well go use it in the future. And that's the whole point of ACT.
That's our stealth move.
Is to give them a process that they can keep using.
Yeah.
So the Matrix does
Take
that.
it, apply it in their lives as
And
they
it's done it well for 14 years now.
worked very nicely.
It just works. Really
Tell
well.
us all the time.
But it's still ACT. It's not, people say, I don't know, I think sometimes they get the idea that it's not ACT. No, it is. It's built on functional contextualism and RFT. I think, it's my humble opinion, it's probably a little tighter to those than traditional ACT. You may read a whole ACT book and never see the terms functional contextualism, RFT, and stuff.
Yep.
It's not so hard.
Yeah. One thing sure is it's definitely less words. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's these other core processes of ACT that we didn't mention that are in Flex. Go take the course to get them.
They're in there. They're all in all the processes.
It takes a while to explain all those, but what I can assure you is that they're all functioning just fine within the Matrix. Didn't leave anything out. No part of ACT was left out. It's just we'll finish with the metaphor that we use, which is that what happened for many years, and I think still happens, is people, because they get lost in ACT, they just start teaching the terms.
Yeah, they kind of throw up their hands and go, "Oh, I'm going to do it this way. I know how to explain things, so let me explain."
Right. So I'm going to explain acceptance. I'm going to explain diffusion. I'm going to explain present moment experiencing. I'm going to explain values. I'm going to explain committed actions. I'm going to, and most of them, by the way, skip selfless contact.
Oh,
it's hard.
Yeah, they don't want anything to do with that.
Cool. And well, what Phil and I long ago discovered, because we used to do that, by the way, we did that too. But that's like having, a totally disassembled bicycle. It showed up in a box.
All the parts just,
or maybe it showed up in several boxes.
Yeah.
and
you got this exploded diagram in front of
you. and somebody who was trying to translate from Chinese English wrote the instruction.
Oh man.
And then finally you figure it out, but you start teaching the components, but you haven't put the bike together.
No, it's still laying there.
And so
not being used.
What the ACT matrix, it's a put together ACT bicycle. It's all put together. And now all we got to do is get somebody to sling their leg up over it.
One leg over, hands on the handlebars.
Then get rolling.
Let's go.
And now, of course, if they don't know how to ride the bike, that's still a lot, but it's a whole lot better and a whole lot faster than starting with all the parts on the garage floor.
Well, then they don't know where to begin at that point.
Yeah, you don't know where to start. You know,
and you're really hopelessly confused, is what I was.
So now you start, and with if we say, yeah, well, you know, we've done this a whole bunch. Start with who's important.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, okay, cool.
And when you've completed, you've done all the ACT processes. Now you haven't talked about them. I know I've said that, and people like in horror go, "Oh my God, what do you mean? That you?" And what they're saying is, well, you didn't talk about acceptance. You didn't talk about diffusion. You didn't talk. Well, yeah, I didn't talk about, no.
By design.
That is all happening under the surface. It's all there. I.e., the psychological flexibility is sort of like balancing on a bicycle. You don't need to talk about balancing.
Yeah.
You know, you're not riding down the road going, I'm balancing. No, you don't do that. You just ride the bike. Well, that's what this is. You're just riding the bike, and psychological flexibility is there, and it's probably increasing.
Get better at it.
So there we go. We'll be back on Friday to do something.
Yes.
Probably one of the courses.
Oh, Alan's asking, when is our ACT for Substance Abuse course coming?
It's already in the can.
It's going to be on the shelf, Alan.
If Tina gets it. This APA thing, folks, it's very official.
Yes.
So
we have these policies that we have to.
So Phil and I may have done the recordings.
Yeah.
Then there's all this
stuff got to be done to make sure all the I's are dotted.
And then after that, then it's the checkout process, so you can buy it.
Exactly. So there's steps along the way.
Along the way, yeah. But nevertheless, it could be done as soon as Friday. We've done the recording.
Yeah. And when it's done, Alan, there'll be an email we'll put out when we have those other courses up on the shelf.
Yeah, we should have. We started with 5, and we should. God, by first couple of weeks of June, we'll have all 5.
Yeah.
And they're always at the ACT Matrix Academy. The ActMatrixAcademy.com.
Yeah.
Right up at the top. And we've made them reasonably priced. So if the one's 6 hours is $119.
$119.
Half of that is the 3 hours. And so far people have said, "Oh, well, that's very reasonable."
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. That's what I've heard.
And that's what we wanted. We wanted
market research.
We wanted a reasonable price. Yeah. There we go. We'll be back on Friday. We'll try and do one where it's up.
Yeah.
Buyable. Right now, you can run over and buy the 6 hour.
Yeah. More to follow.
Okay.
All right. See ya.
Bye now.
Bye.